What up, film fans? How is everybody doing? Before I forget, wherever you're listening to this or watching this, please do hit the subscribe button or the follow button and follow us on the social media pages. I say us, it's still just me. Follow me at Chatting Script, Instagram and Twitter. That's the admin out of the way. I won't lie to you, film fans. I won't lie to you. I am phoning this one in a little bit this week. It has been busy. I have had a very busy start to the year. I've done a 12-day stint followed by 2 days off, and then a 6-day stint followed by a day off, and now I'm doing another 12-day stint. I'm in the midst of that. Is that maths correct? Yeah, doesn't matter. Either way, I'm working my balls off. And then I'm in the midst of getting a bunch of stuff, my own content, other than this podcast that I'm still putting out weekly, getting 3 different projects, into fruition at the moment. Stuff that I've written, and I'm collaborating with other people and XYZ, trying to get all that stuff in motion. So I'm balls to the walls, but I'd rather be busy than bored, and at least I'm being creative. So anyway, that's my shallow justification as to why this one is going to be a little bit phoned in. I do apologize, but at least I'm giving you free content every week. So there you go. The reason this one's that's the justification for it. But then the main reason that this one's being a little bit phoned in is just for all those reasons given, I just haven't really had time to plan either stuff I can riff about, or I don't have time to do a full movie analysis right now, because like I've said and I've got, don't worry, I'm going to keep that one to myself. Figured I said anything. But there's another reason that I'm quite busy at the moment and short on time. But yeah, I don't have time right now to do a movie analysis. I've said on other podcasts that, say the movie is 2 hours long, there's 2 hours of me watching it, and then there's at least another hour added on for me to pause it and talk about it, right? So a 2-hour movie becomes a 3-hour recording session. And then throw in the editing on top of that, which normally takes a couple of hours, sometimes 3 hours, and then that video itself can take a good, because my computer's a bit slow. I don't know if this is normal actually, but it can take a good 6 or so hours, sometimes even 8 or 10 to actually export the video ready for uploading. So basically, woe is me. Feel very sorry for me. And no, so I haven't planned a lot of what I'm going to say. So this podcast is probably going to be really short. And if you're still with me at this point after 3 hours of me going, cry me a river. Sorry, 3 hours, 3 minutes of me woe is meing my way through this, then thank you for staying around. Spoiler alert for episode 2 of The Last of Us, because I watched that earlier this week. And if you've seen the first one as well, first episode of that, probably also spoiler alert for those who haven't. But how good is this TV show, man? How good is this? I was a little bit skeptical about Bella Ramsey initially. She's great in Game of Thrones, don't get me wrong. But the casting initially didn't strike me. And to be honest, I think I said this on the other pod anyway, the casting of Pedro Pascal initially, I was like, okay. But he's absolutely nailing it. Pedro Pascal is fucking fantastic in this. He's fantastic in everything. I don't know why I ever doubted him. Sorry, Pedro. But yeah, I think Bella Ramsey's doing it pretty well. She's definitely got that kind of me against the world kind of attitude to her, a little bit angsty teen sort of stuff. She's doing well. But my favorite sequence in episode 2 was probably everyone's favorite sequence, but it was the clicker sequence, just because the use of sound and camera angles was so good. So initially you don't hear anything, they think they might have gotten away with it in terms of they haven't alerted anything to their presence when they're in that in that. I'm going to assume anyone who's still listening to at this point when I've said spoiler alert that you've either seen it or you don't care, so I won't describe it too much. But like when they go upstairs in that museum or whatever it is, they make some noise and they pause for a minute and they're a bit watchful and they're like, okay, we may have gotten away with that. And then you hear like the clicker noise. And then anyone who's played the games and knows what that means is like, oh, shit. And then what they do is but it's sold on Joel and the actress playing Tess. It's sold on their acting ability to basically showcase how like scared or concerned or just sort of on red alert they are when you hear this clicker coming through, and they all start backing away very slowly, being very quiet and everything. And they stay in focus while they're backing away, and we even get shots behind their shoulders of what they're looking at as we see the sort of clicker emerge from the shadows into a doorway. And that is all quite out of focus, so it gives a bit of mystery to those who may not have played the games. And then there's some like really cool moments, like where Joel has basically, they've alerted the clickers to their presence and they're fighting them and chasing them and stuff, and Joel manages to get some distance between him and the clicker. And the clickers, if you don't know or can't remember, they're blind, so they work on sort of like a sonar thing. And Joel's hiding behind a cabinet, and it's what we call a split shot. So Joel's in the foreground hiding behind a cabinet, and then in the background is the clicker sort of looking for him. And Joel needs to reload his gun, but obviously he has to do it very slowly, and it's a revolver, so it's not the case of just sliding out a magazine and sliding a new one in. It's individually, quietly clipping in each one of those bullets, flipping the wheel of the gun back up, pulling back the hammer, and then, getting ready to potentially use it. All of that, dead quiet, is what he has to do, otherwise he'll, get got. And the shot slowly moves in from being a split shot on both of them. It slowly moves in, tracks towards over to Joel, keeping the clicker way in the background, and you don't see the clicker advance. You hear it for a bit. So we hear it, we see where it is, and we hear it making noises, and then we hear those noises when the camera then moves away from the clicker and focuses only on Joel. We hear those noises to the same like level of sound as they were when we saw the clicker in screen. So when you hear it to that sort of sound balance or whatever it is that you call it, you're like, okay, well the clicker's still in that position then. It sort of, your mind just goes, okay, I heard the sound relative to the distance, blah, 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 that's where it is. So then when you can't see it and you hear it again, you're like, okay, it's still there. And then you don't hear anything from the clicker for a while. We're just focusing on Joel slipping in those bullets into the revolver chamber for a bit. And then all of a sudden you hear the clicker noise again, but it's much louder. And it's also, for me at least on my speaker setup here at home, it was predominantly coming through like the stage right speaker, so audience left speaker, and it was a lot louder, so that makes you be like, oh shit, it's like right fucking next to him now, like, and he's finished loading and he's about to like turn around, and then as it turns around, the camera widens back out to encompass the clicker as well, and it's like fucking next to him. It was a really cool sequence, really, really nice. Like I say, the use of sound and everything, and it was really reminiscent of the game. Like one of the best things about that game is things like ammo for your weapons are really few and far between. So you have to like really sort of preserve certain, you can't just go, well, you could go guns blazing, but unless you're a really good shot and you make every bullet count, it's quite difficult to do that. So when I play it, I would normally use it quite sparingly, just sort of get away with shooting only when I have to, or when I know I have a clear shot, or in a sort of last resort panic sort of spray and pray kind of thing. And that sequence did, and then as well, like, if you are maybe low on ammo, or maybe you don't have a melee weapon that, because when a clicker gets close to you, if you don't have a melee weapon, you if they grab you, you're kind of fucked. I think with Ellie, she has a little pocket knife that can she stab them and get away? I can't remember now. It's been a little while since I've played it. It's been like a good year since I've played the second one, and even longer since I played the first one. But yeah, so if you have a melee weapon, you can like bash them before they grab you, but melee weapons break after a certain amount of uses depending on the durability of that weapon, right? So if you only have like guns on you, then if they grab you, that's it. It's night, game over, restart at your last checkpoint. And that sequence felt to me like so truthful to the game, in the sense that Joel and Tess, although they're like these really sort of like experienced, world-weary, gruff, kind of rough and ready survivors, proper survivors, not these pussies that will only stay in the quarantine zones and like don't venture out and don't know what the world is like on the outside. They've been there, they've seen it, they lived it, right? And even they don't really want to fuck with the clickers. They want to stay away from them. They were hoping that they wouldn't run into them. So they're sort of acting in terms of like showcasing that fear, or like not wanting to engage with them, combined with the way that it was shot and the sequence and how it all played out was, I thought, really, really truthful to the game. Because there are so many moments in the game where you're just like, oh, I haven't got either the energy or the ammo or whatever to like go fucking balls to the wall. So like, I'm gonna just try and stealth this one and pick them off if I can, or have every intention of wiping them all out and killing them all. But sometimes you want to do that from the shadows, and stealthy and quietly. So yeah, it was really cool. Yeah, I really, really liked it. I also started watching season 4 of Fargo, which is a banging bunch of series. I did a pod ages ago. There's no video component for it because it was before I added that, but there's an audio only pod for the Fargo movie, which is incredible if you haven't seen it. I'd recommend watch the movie before you watch the TV show if you haven't seen either, but the TV show is awesome as well. Every series is a new story with new characters, and they all have that classic Fargo introduction title card where it's like, what does it say? It's something along the lines of, this is based on a true story out of respect, something like to protect those involved. Names have been changed, but out of respect for the dead, everything else has been told exactly as it occurred. And I'm pretty sure it was found out after the film came out that that's bullshit and it's all a fake story. But it's a really cool marketing tool. Maybe not a marketing tool, but it's a really cool immersive tool. Because you if you don't know that, you sort of watching it as a viewer going, this shit happened? Good grief. But yeah, so I watched seasons 1, 2 and 3, like more or less when they were available on UK Netflix. I don't have a VPN to access foreign Netflix. And number 4 isn't on there, and it hasn't been on there for ages. And I was like, oh man, I really want to watch this. Like, I knew that Chris Rock was the main dude in it, and I fucking love Chris Rock. I love Chris Rock. Shame on Will Smith for slapping that man. How dare you? And that's really old news at this point. No one gives a shit anymore. But no, I love Chris Rock. He is one of those comedians that is absolutely shit hot at what he does in stand-up comedy, but then also like his acting chops are pretty damn good too, I think the first thing I properly saw him act in was Lethal Weapon 4, where he plays Danny Glover / Roger Murtaugh's like son-in-law. And that fucking scene where they're in the dentist chair with Benny, what organization is he from? The head of whatever criminal organization is the fucking villain in that film, and they're interrogating him using laughing gas from the dentist chair, and they all like end up getting high off of it as well. Oh man, I love a good body cop movie, and say what you will about Mel Gibson, the Lethal Weapon franchise is fucking brilliant, and I will die on that hill. But But yeah, so like I think that was the first thing I probably like sort of took notice of Chris Rock in as an actor. And I watched those films way too young, but you know, we live and learn, and I have a potty mouth as a result of watching films like this way too young. Nah, that's not the only reason. But I do have a potty mouth. Yeah, so Chris Rock, Fargo season 4. I was just scrolling through Amazon Prime because I find that I only tend to go on Amazon Prime when I know that there's something that I'm either looking forward to it being released or something I'm already like hooked on, like The Boys, for example. Like I'll always jump on that shit straight away. Or what's that animated one which is similar in theme to The Boys, starring Stephen Yeun of Walking Dead fame and Nope. It is called Invincible. And if this was the show Invincible, it would have cut me off just before I finished saying that word. It would have been like, and then there would have been a title card and blood splatter. If you've seen the cartoon, you'll know exactly what I mean. And if you haven't seen it, I sound like a nutter. But trust me, it's a good little inside reference there. That is a banging cartoon, by the way. If no one's seen Invincible, jump on Amazon Prime and start watching Invincible. I won't tell you a lot about it, except it's an animated show, so a cartoon by some people's standards. Animated show for adults in terms of it's got mature themes throughout, and it's about superheroes. And if you're going, but I'm so superhero fatigued, like Disney Plus is just full of everything Marvel, and the DC universe is not hitting home runs when it really should be. It's barely getting to first base. Baseball reference for a guy who's never seen a baseball match in his life. Then trust me, shows like The Boys and Invincible are a really nice tonic for that kind of superhero fatigue. Because I feel, I've been getting superhero fatigued a bit as well. I really have. I really have. So, Invincible. I won't tell you a lot about it other than that. And The Boys as well. If you haven't watched The Boys, I can't recommend that show enough. Oh, it's good shit. It's really good shit. Where was I? Yeah, so I was cruising through Amazon Prime, like just seeing what's out there, just seeing what's on, because I always forget to do that. I'll normally scroll through, like Netflix is usually my go-to, and then there's a few things on Disney Plus that I watch, which is normally the Star Wars and Marvel sort of stuff. But every now and then I know for a fact there's like a banging new film on there, like The Banshee of Inisherin, or other films. Actually, there are other films on that platform, but they'll normally be sort of my go-to, and I don't tend to cruise through it that often. And I was just scrolling through it the other day, and Fargo was on there, and I was like, I didn't realize Fargo was on Netflix as well. And then I noticed it said 4 seasons, and I was like, season 4 is on there. So the other night I sat down and watched episode 1 of Fargo, season 4, and yeah, it's good classic Fargo. I haven't been able to watch any more of it than that. But yeah, if you're not familiar with Fargo, here's a little pitch for you. It's it's Coen Brothers creation, so it's very Coen Brothers-esque. If you're not familiar with the Coen Brothers, do yourself a favor and start checking out their, I was going to say discography, their catalogue of films. Check that out. You could start with Fargo. You could also start with Miller's Crossing. You could start with No Country for Old Men. You could just fucking dive in, man. They're so good at constructing like really intricate sort of colloquial and character specific kind of dialogue, So like, for example, in the Fargo films and series, it's set in like Minnesota, in Fargo. But everyone's like, oh, Minnesota. Oh, yeah, you betcha. And it's like full of, those kind of colloquialisms and stuff. And like Miller's Crossing, for example, is just going to take a swig of the old H2O. Bear with. Yeah, Miller's Crossing. Everyone's a gangster, And the first time I watched it, I was like, these motherfuckers are actually quite hard to understand. It's all a bit mumbled. There's a lot of like, is there a lot of slang? It's been a while since I've seen it. There's not slang, but like sort of, gangster terms. He's sleeping with the fishes. I don't think they ever say that in the film. But Yeah, and then a friend of mine that I went to drama school with told me that it was deliberately designed so that all the characters and the dialogue and stuff would be kind of hard to catch. Like maybe you're just catching parts of a conversation in a bar or something that you shouldn't really be overhearing, kind of thing, because they are gangsters and stuff, so they're talking sort of secretively a lot of the time. It's like it's an inner circle that we, the audience, shouldn't really be able to participate in. So apparently it was a deliberate decision, which is a very odd decision, because you'd think that you would want your audience to be able to understand the characters and the story, but it never stopped Marlon Brando, did it? The great mumbler, as he was referred to. That guy mumbled his way through his entire acting career, and my God, wasn't he good? Marlon Brando. You know, he is... There's already been so much said about how fantastic Marlon Brando is, but, like, he never didn't hit a home run. Another baseball reference. He never didn't smash it, man. Like, if you watch stuff like On the Waterfront or... I was going to say Cat on the Hot Tin Roof, but... it's not that one. It's Streetcar Named Desire. Like his two sort of early proper breakout films that made people sit up and go, damn, this Brando kid's good. And, you know, the sort of performances that basically redefined acting in Western cinema. Like, you know, everyone used to be sort of... yes, we will deliver our lines, and oh, I'm so mad. You know, it was all very like telegraphed, and then Marlon Brando just sort of like would stroll in on set, sort of mumbling with Stella. You know, he would just sort of mumble in, and you know, how many times are we gonna? That's a really bad Marlon Brando impression. I'm so sorry. I used to do an alright Marlon Brando, but now I'm sat here and I'm improvising off the top of my head, and I can't think of any Marlon Brando quotes that aren't The Godfather. And I'm trying to talk about his older stuff. So, Napoleonic cold. I promise you, I can do an alright Marlon, but it ain't happening today, man. Damn you, I dropped my vape. And I'm back. What the fucking hell was I talking about, man? Yeah, my GP thinks I have ADD, so that's why I'm probably tangenting around and not focusing on one point for more than, I don't know, 30 seconds. Anyway, where was I? I was where? Where's was we? Here. Here we are. There you are. Hi, everyone. Marlon Brando redefined cinema. So those old, you know, everyone was doing telegraphed, like, oh, I'm emotional and, you know, very showing you how they acted or how they felt or whatever, how the characters felt. And then Brando came in and was just like, I'm not saying anything original here right now. This has all been said before. People much more eloquent and intelligent than I have already stated how good Brando is, so I don't really need to hammer this home, but he just provided that really kind of casual, naturalistic, yeah, exactly that, naturalistic kind of charismatic performance, and then people were like, well, where did this motherfucker learn to act and everything? And it was through the sort of Stanislavski Strasberg? Yeah, Lee Strasberg, Stella Adler kind of systems, I believe. I'm pretty sure anyway. And then obviously that inspired and birthed people like DeNiro, the greatest in my opinion, Al Pacino, you know, all these like titan heavyweight actors that sort of probably not what they would have wanted to have happened, but ended up sort of being referred to as like the method actors. And that is a term that has lost its meaning. So, because method acting is supposed to, it's kind of become dirtied into this like grandiose, like sort of prideful, egotistical statement of, oh, I'm method acting this part, or look how in character I am, look how method I am. I'm going to stay in character for the whole 9-month shoot duration of this movie, and I'm gonna, and there is some like credit to it in a way, like someone like Daniel Day-Lewis making everybody on the set of Lincoln refer to him as Mr. President, and like making everyone in the cast maintain their American accents through the whole time they were on set, and he didn't drop his Lincoln accent and voice and everything. And you're like, there is some merit to that. Like when I'm on set, if I have to do an accent or something or a dialect, I do like to maintain it, but that's just because I'm not good. Like I will just drop back into Luke's voice. So sorry. What I mean is, like, if I have to do an accent for the takes and everything, and then go wait in the green room or whatever for, could be 10 minutes, could be an hour, while they change shots and do setups and stuff, and I just start speaking to other people in the green room in my voice, in Luke's voice, then when I go back out on set and I have to do the accent thing again, I lose confidence in myself, and I start second guessing myself, and that will shine through on the camera because I won't be there confidently present as the actor. And also, I'm of the opinion that the longer you do something like an accent, the longer you maintain it, the more natural it comes, and you don't have to think about it as much, and you have a better command of your voice as a result in terms of, pronouncing certain words. So like, what's a good example? In American, they might say like, "Hey, don't ping pong at me. I'm doing a podcast." They wouldn't say that. They might say like, "Or pass the butter," whereas we'd say "pass the butter." I don't know why they need butter. Maybe they're having pancakes, but that's like a different way of moving your tongue inside your mouth, and the position of the breath is different, right? So the longer you do something and the longer you stay in that, the more second nature that becomes, and then you don't have to think about it. So then when you are acting, you're not thinking about, oh, how do I make sure I say this line so that it stays in my accent? Your attention is on the other person, and then you can live truthfully in those imaginary circumstances, which is a Sanford Meisner quote. And I would always recommend Meisner to any actor as a practitioner to learn some shit from. So there's method to the madness. No, there's something to be said for like that kind of behavior. But then you do hear, I'm going to try not to name names, but then you do hear like horror stories of actors just doing like diabolical shit on set. And Robert Pattinson said something really intelligent, I thought. He said that a lot of the time, I'm paraphrasing, but he said like a lot of the time, it seems as though method actors only say they're doing something method when it gives them an excuse to be an asshole or something like that, something to that effect. And it is somewhat true. You do hear a lot of strange stories from just like quite abhorrent behavior from actors on set, just really sort of taking the piss. And quite often it does seem like it's just some sort of Oscar grab or something. And that's the muddying of method acting. Because method acting is supposed to be embodying a character to, not like the maximum degree, but really putting yourself in their shoes. It sounds a bit stupid because obviously if you're playing a character in anything, you're putting yourself in their shoes. But like, it's like a real embodiment of the way that character moves, the way they respond to things, the way they think about things. What's their backstory? Where did they come from? What did they do 5 minutes before the director said action? Because their life didn't start when the director said action. They may have been eating a sandwich and now they're having a business meeting. What were they doing? You just sort of have to really be in there and live it. And I'm not explaining it very well, but like you can just look up people like Stanislavski, Strasberg, Sterard, all that kind of stuff. And there's a real sort of beautiful art to that, and there's a real lovely nuance to it. And this is why I think De Niro is the best at it, because I've seen like clips of him. There's a really great clip of him with Brando in, I believe it's The Rock, the film called The Rock. I believe it's that. I might have that wrong, but you can YouTube this. It's Brando and De Niro improvising a scene, and Brando is essentially the essence of the conversation doesn't change. It's Brando hiring him for a job, and De Niro asking for a certain amount of pay for the work. And there's about 2 or 3 takes on this, like behind the scenes clip, and Brando basically gives De Niro 3 completely sort of separate or completely different, like lines or chunks or responses to the amount that De Niro is requesting. And De Niro's responses don't particularly change that much, right? And I remember flicking through the comment section, and one of the top comments was like, because the video is called like Robert De Niro and Marlon Brando improvise a scene or something like that. And one of the top comments was, you mean Brando improvises a scene and Robert De Niro responds the same way 3 times, or something to that effect. And I remember thinking like, no, because Tarantino says this the best, actually. And I realized that I'm completely constructing my argument and thought process based off of like what other people have said. But I don't care. Tarantino said it really well. I don't know what the interview was, but I saw this briefly on like social media or YouTube or something as well. And he was talking about working with De Niro on Jackie Brown. And he was saying that De Niro is so truthfully rooted in character that every living moment that he is on film, he is in character and he's responding truthfully to the circumstances and the other actors in character. And then Tarantino goes on to say that, people will say something like, there's like 100 or 1,000 ways you can respond to a situation. And I agree with Tarantino on this. He says he doesn't believe that at all. And I agree with him on this, because, there's really, he uses an example of like, say he spills the water all over the desk that him and the interviewer, I think it's Charlie Ross or Charlie Rose or something. Sorry, I can't remember. Say he spills water over the desk. There's about like 4 ways that Charlie would respond to that. 4 ways that are truthful to Charlie as a person and as a, quote, character, right? And that's 100% true. Like, you listening to this right now, depending on what day it is, in terms of how you feel, did you get enough sleep, has something already pissed you off this morning, have you woken up singing to the birds chirping in the trees, like, is life going swimmingly? Depending on what the circumstances are, there's only a handful of ways that you would respond to any moment. It could be you're working in a coffee shop and some absolute Karen starts complaining to you about that order that you might have fucked up or whatever. And if you've woken up in a really good mood, you might be like, I'm really sorry, Karen, let me sort that out for you. Whereas if you've woken up in a shit mood, you might be a bit blunt and sarcastic or whatever to her. But those would be true to you and your character, right? So what De Niro does is he responds to these specific moments truthfully as that character, not 100 different ways that he's pulling out of his ass because it's an ego trip to feel like, oh, the more ways I have to respond to this, than the better per se. He's thinking, no, how would this particular character, so in the Jackie Brown case, Lewis, how would he respond to each moment he's presented with the energy the other character's giving him? And that is true method work, I think. I feel like I haven't really sort of stated what true method work specifically is in terms of like the application from sort of like the practitioners and stuff, but it's definitely not this like grandiose look at me, I'm so in character to the point where I'm gonna behave like an absolute narcissist to my castmates. Fuck it, I wasn't gonna name names, but I'm gonna name names now. Caveat: I really like Jared Leto as an actor. He's also a fantastic singer, and he's a gorgeous looking human being. Caveat to that caveat: he may also be a cult leader, which, wait, no, he's a self-professed cult leader. His band 30 Seconds to Mars say all the time, we are a cult. So he is a cult leader. I don't know if he's a problematic human. I don't know him. But he is undoubtedly a very good actor. Most of the time. Sometimes he misses the mark. But I will say, actually, caveat to that caveat, he is very brave and bold in his choices, and I do admire him for that. But unfortunately, when you're brave and bold in all your choices, it can be risky, and not everything is a home run. There's another baseball reference for you. Not everything is a home run, right? Not everything is an absolute 10 out of 10 performance. Sometimes he'll throw in a 5 or a 6. But quite often he will throw out a 10. And, he won an Oscar for doing exactly that. So well done, Jared. But there was all these stories when he played the Joker in the first Suicide Squad movie. There's all these stories about him doing just ridiculous shit behind the scenes. And if I was a co-star, it probably would have pissed me off. And maybe that was his intention, but I don't know if there's any truth to it, but like sending the other castmates, like, I think it might have been like dead animals, or this might not be absolutely true at all, but I heard he even sent them used anal beads, which is just a bit much, sir. But that might not be true. So, allegedly he did those things. Allegedly. But either way, whatever, even if those really grim things aren't true, there's, in my eyes, there's almost a disrespect to that, because I think it sounds like the idea behind him doing that was to like either present himself or the character of the Joker to the cast, and it like to sort of give them like a is it preposition, like when your reputation kind of precedes you, to then sort of influence how they would be towards him when they were on set. And to me, there's a slight disrespect to that, because you're not trusting or allowing the other actors to bring their own cards to the table. Like, they might have thought, like, okay, my character is X, my relationship with the Joker would be Y, based on this backstory I've either come up with myself, or like read in the comics, or read between the lines in the script, or maybe it's in the script in and of itself, right? So they might think, okay, my character is going to detest that character, and I'm going to bring that to the table. Or they might think, my character is actually secretly going to really admire the Joker, and I'm going to bring that to the table. But then you open your mail one day and you've received some disgusting item, and you're like, oh, well, now I don't really like that actor, and that's going to mar what I was going to bring to the table anyway. Like, it just, do you get the point I'm making? It just seems a little bit disrespectful and quite narcissistic. Again, I just want to say these are alleged things, but it was the only example I could think of for like abhorrent behavior on a film set. And I do like Jared Leto as a performer. So there's that. Anyway. Yes, so method acting. I don't know. I feel like I fucking ran out of shit to say now. And potentially insulted one of the biggest stars in Hollywood. But there we go. Oh, yeah. Wow. That was like a 20-minute tangent, but I just remembered where I started this method shit from. So from basically, without Brando sort of bringing his style to the screen, we probably wouldn't have acting as we do at the moment, and maybe everybody would still be really sort of like over the top and delivering telegraphed performances. So, I mean, everyone is already aware. I'm not saying anything original, but, that's well done, Brando, basically. There's a reason he's one of the GOATs. There. Nah, he really is. Who are some other GOATs? I mean, obviously, DeNiro is my all-time favorite. But then you got people like Christopher Walken, Kate Blanchett, Al Pacino, Christian Bale is phenomenal. So, and maybe he's not GOAT status yet because maybe he needs to be around a little bit more. Brad Pitt, one of the GOATs, for sure, one of the GOATs. I remember reading somewhere that he has the curse of, having this gorgeous leading man face and physique, but the acting range of like one of the best character actors or like method actors ever. But because of how he looks, he was usually sort of given, very leading man roles that wouldn't allow him to showcase his full range. But every time he's allowed to sort of like deviate from that kind of leading man, because leading men do tend to be a little bit more restricted, as in the characters. They tend to be a little bit more restricted into a certain way, whereas quite often the supporting roles tend to be you can push the boundaries a little bit more and get a little bit kookier with it maybe, or maybe a little bit more unhinged or whatever. So when you see him in stuff like Snatch, the Guy Ritchie movie where he plays the gypsy Mickey O'Neill, the bare knuckle boxing champion, he's really just like having a whale of a time doing that shit. Or 12 Monkeys, where he's the patient in the mental hospital that Bruce Willis sort of bumps into. He's really just off the walls bonkers in that, and it's a brilliant performance. He's fantastic, Brad Pitt, and I guess it's quite Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, again, fantastic in that, where I think he's technically a supporting lead in that, but he's basically a lead, sort of him and DiCaprio carrying that film. But he just gets to be a little bit looser, because he doesn't really have to shoulder it as like a leading man the same way that Leo does in that film. Hopefully you can't hear my laptop taking off again. I really need to fix that before it breaks, because that would suck. Yeah, who are some other GOATs in the acting world? Charlize Theron's pretty great. Meryl Streep. How did I not say her yet? Meryl Streep. Oh, I'm pretty sure it's Meryl Streep that has the record for the most acting Oscar nominations. Like more than any other performer. Like Daniel Day-Lewis has the most wins for an actor in a leading role. He's the only actor with 3 lead actor Oscars. I think the most the next people have is 2. But yeah, Meryl Streep has the overall most noms, as they say, nominations. Who else we got? What's her bloody name? Is it Viola Davis? Shit, can't remember. I'm also very tired, so names and stuff, they usually escape me, and they're escaping me even further today. Yeah, you know what, guys? I'm going to wrap it there. If you're still with me at this point, thank you for listening to my absolute bollocks rambling. But I wanted to put something out for you, and this was kind of all I had to bring to the table. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Please do rate, review, subscribe to all the places you're listening and or watching, and the social media channels. We are at Chatting Script. I am at Chatting Script everywhere. Goodbye and thank you, and continue to watch all of the things.